And we have decided that that kind of danger, that kind of violence is acceptable. And I'm baffled that we talk only about political violence when it occurs to famous people and not political violence that happens to everyday people who can't choose to just be quiet.
Alrighty, welcome in. Alabama politics this week. Another fine week of politicking around here. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
I'm good, man. It's a good day today. Interesting time in our nation. You know, as you know, I know we're going to get into this later. Jimmy Kimmel did his first show last night. We record this on Wednesdays, usually. And so he did his first return last night. I know we're going to talk about that. So it's just an interesting time.
Yeah. Interesting is a good way to put it. It's interesting all the time, always nowadays. Before we are going to talk about Kimmel, talk about some other things as well. The certain to be coming lawsuit from Tylenol. The way things are moving along.
Yeah.
But before we do any of that, I need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment. They sponsor this show and help us keep this thing on the podcast platforms, and we really do appreciate them. I started to say airwaves, but we're not on any airwaves. I don't think you can say that. We're on the interwebs, so we're in the series of tubes that run to everybody's homes. But we really do appreciate them and all they do. I wrote a column this morning, came out this morning about I saw the Jay Mitchell, who's running for AG for this state, talk about Catherine Robertson taking big gambling money because she accepted $10,000 from the Poarch Creek Indians. And I first of all found it stupid on many fronts. The two primary ones being the fact that first of all, what the hell is big gambling? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why do we treat gambling as though it's anything other than a business at this point? I mean, there's a FanDuel and DraftKings ad on TV every 5 seconds during a football Saturday and Sunday. I mean, seriously, it's everywhere. And some of the nation's, biggest investors and most respected people in our country are invested in gambling operations. And I mean, it's just a business now. It's just what it is. People view it as entertainment, and it has been normalized and really, I would say, disinfected from a lot of the problems that we've seen in gambling over the years. But besides that, I mean, you're also taking a donation from the Poarch Creek Indians. I mean, these are citizens in your home state, and and folks who have are running dozens of very successful businesses in this state. And helping local podcasts. I mean, maybe that's the problem Jay Mitchell has, is that we're not stupid here on our podcast, and they sponsor us. And so, but I just think that it was very mean-spirited towards them. I thought it was ugly. I thought it was ugly towards them.
And I was going to say, I mean, you would know better than I, but it seems to me like, I mean, even if you want to have a beef with gambling, which, as you've said, has been so mainstreamed now, that just doesn't really make any real sense. The reality is, I don't know that gambling is the major piece of the Indians' portfolio. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think it's their major piece. Yeah, I think it's their major piece. Yeah, okay. But it's the resorts and gaming and stuff. That's what has been their bread and butter for a number of years. But they have expanded far beyond that. They have and
that's what I was thinking with the hotels and and the defense industry stuff. But okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. That they have expanded their portfolio tremendously over the course of the last decade and a half, and have really diversified themselves and become big players in the world of business around this state. So things that you often hear Republicans tout, these industry leaders for, and really try to cozy up to them. But I found it ridiculous because, I mean, just the way that we treat gaming, when, I think we all know that we have a lot of industry in this state that have done a lot of harm. I'm from Decatur. We just the other day we're in we'd gone to my folks' house. My little girl had stayed there with them for a while. My wife and I went out to eat, and as we were leaving out of town, we rode past where my middle school used to be. and it's no longer there. It's just a field out there. And the reason that it's just a field out there is because we figured out that one of the industry's indicator was dumping toxic waste into the landfill on which the school sat, and it was deemed a toxic waste site, and now nothing sits on it. And so, but would anybody bat an eye if the attorney general or attorney general candidates took donations from 3M?
Nope.
No, wouldn't say a word.
They wouldn't even think twice about it.
And nobody in gambling has done as much harm as 3M has done in just that town there. And it just, that's the thing to me. Look, if you want to make an argument that the AG should not accept money from businesses because they're going to have to regulate those businesses, okay, that's fair. We can have a discussion about that. And I don't know that I'd necessarily disagree with you on those things. But if you're going to limit it down to this one thing, and pretend as though this one thing is somehow more nefarious than these things that are actually harming people, that's where I draw a line, especially when you're talking about people I have met and people who I know, and I know them to be good people. I know them to care about the folks in Alabama. I know them to have done a tremendous amount of things that they have never had to do for folks around them in their communities, in the areas where they operate businesses, where they live. I mean, the streets they've paved, the water treatment plants they put in, the infrastructure they've provided is tremendous. And it's just, I just wish that had not been done, because I felt like it was a shot at them for just to play on old tropes. And it was very, very unfair to them.
Yeah, it was strictly political. We know that. Yeah. And the reality is, at some point, it's very possible that if that guy wins the attorney general's race, he's going to end up coming to Huntsville and probably staying in one of the hotels that was made possible by the Poarch Creek Indians and their gambling interests. Because you would not have, the successful hotel businesses and the other businesses that are non-gambling businesses without, as you've pointed out, without the gambling business. So
yes.
It all seems a little trite and ridiculous, really.
Yeah. Listen, and I get that they sponsor us, and we're appreciative of that or whatever.
Of course.
But I mean, it's beyond.
But there's a logic to what we're saying, though. I mean,
right.
We're saying would stand up. I think it makes sense whether they were sponsoring us or not.
Right. Yeah. I'll say that I would say the same thing, and have said the same thing for years about gambling and the way that we treat it. And that always has included the Poarch Creeks in the way that we have gone about it. This is the reason why we have these problems. It's the reason why we don't have a comprehensive gambling bill right now that regulates and taxes gaming in this state. It's the reason why, honestly, it's kind of the reason why the Poarch Creeks have been so ultra successful in this state, is because our lawmakers have played these games like this for so long. It gave them essentially a monopoly for a number of years in there. So it wasn't a monopoly that they asked for, but it was a monopoly that they were able to get because under federal law, they're able to offer more games than some of the local folks around. And so that's the reason why they've been so successful. And, from that, they have done a number of really good things that they didn't have to do. And honestly, had I been treated the way some of them have been treated, I don't know that I would have done a lot of those things. But, they wanted to, they're different folks. I'm serious. I met with them many times. They're kind and decent people. And as I've said, I think that if this state acted a lot more like them, then we'd be a lot better off. But that's, if you can, go to go. I'll tell you this. I'm gonna recommend this. Go to the Poarch Creek's three resorts in this state, in Wetumpka, Atmore, and Montgomery. Go and stay, play the games, have fun. But I would encourage you to do this too. Go down to the reservation. Go down there and go to the Welcome Center. Go and learn, meet some of the folks. Just poke around for a little bit and see what's going on around there, and look at the things that they're doing, and learn about how they're doing it. And don't take my word for it. I've written some things about how they live and what they've done with the money on the reservation. I wish you'd go down and take a look for yourself. And just see it, and come away understanding that if we adopted those same attitudes, how much better off we would be in this state. All right. That's all I'm asking. And you do it, and I think you'll come away with the same feelings we have. All righty. So after all that, I'm going to need some Tylenol. But I don't want it to cause autism. Let me ask you this. because I do want to get to Kimmel as well, but quickly, I had this conversation with my wife and with some other folks as well. And, we laugh and we joke about this stuff. And Donald Trump is somehow again president. And I'll remind people that we're like just about halfway through his first year of his second term. And
doesn't feel like it, but yeah.
It seems like he's been in there for about 15 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But, I watched that press conference when he couldn't pronounce the drug that he believed to be, that he was holding the press conference to claim caused autism in children. Okay.
Right.
But that they then landed on Tylenol and to blame Tylenol for women taking Tylenol during pregnancy, which is, it's a ridiculous assertion. I mean, it really is. And there's no medical data in their very thing that they sent out. They claim that there's no medical causation listed. Okay. I mean, but besides that, then in addition to this, at the same press conference, our president of the United States says that Amish people don't have autism. They don't have any autism because they don't take any vaccines and they don't take a lot of these things. Okay. He says this. I believe I'm right in saying this. I believe is what he said. And he asked RFK Jr., who even RFK Jr. was like, well, or, and when you get an RFK Jr. to even pause on something, I mean, you're really out there on a limb.
Yeah.
And, it just made me think there are a whole generation of children now. I mean, he's been around since 2016, so let's say 2015. There are a whole generation of children now that don't understand how insanely odd it is to have the president of the United States to just say shit, to just say message board level guessing stuff about
not even
Tylenol.
Not even always that.
No, I mean, just like
in
just
terms
like,
of being informed,
No, right. No, not informed at all. Completely, provably, easily provable wrong. Okay. I mean, just to just say it out and there to be everybody to just go, yeah. I mean, had this happened, had Barack Obama claimed at some point that Amish people don't have autism, it would be on T-shirts.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
If George W. Bush had said something about Tylenol causing autism, we would have made fun of him mercilessly, okay? It would have been a Saturday Night Live skit with Will Ferrell talking about it forever. And
this, Josh, is Trump's greatest superpower. The fact that he has been able to normalize his behavior to such a degree that, as you said, we hear him say crazy, asinine, illogical, disprovable stuff. And we just go, it's another day in Donald Trump's world. I mean, he's normalized his behavior. And unfortunately, what that does is it has a trickle down effect in that it normalizes the behavior of others. So when you have Stephen Miller ranting and raving at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, again, it makes news, but there's no real, because it's just, okay, one more thing from somebody in Trump's camp. Just one more. Here we go. We know that they demonize. We know that they spew hate and venom. That's what they do. In order for us to deal with it, we've developed a coping mechanism of just saying, okay, well, here it is. I can't get outraged every time they do it because if I do, I'll have a heart attack.
Well, it seems like he's found this odd space in our little society or whatever out there where he says things like this stuff, the Amish stuff, the Tylenol thing, and people pay attention to a little bit of it. But at the same time, it's so dumb that really smart people are like, oh my God, I mean, it just go away, while at the same time, dumb people are going, well, let's get rid of the Tylenol. Let's get rid of and so he's occupying this space where no other politician lives, where you can't live in this space because you'll be criticized, just unbelievably for saying a lot of the stupid things that he says, but he says them anyway. and he just says them so often that the smart people out there are just like, I mean, it's just Trump being Trump, just Trump being Trump. Are you really gonna complain about every single thing he does? Are you really gonna do that? And they call it Trump derangement syndrome, but then you have this whole mass of people who are out here throwing away their damn Tylenol and stuff, and it just, I don't know. While at the same time, all of the other politicians, even Republicans, to a certain degree, are still held to the same standards as before.
Well, that's why I say it's his superpower. That's exactly why I say it's his superpower. He has mastered the ability to normalize his behavior. And yet again, I think there's an interesting psychology to this in my mind, because as you just said, we hold everybody else to the normal standards. And that's because we see them as normal people. Normalize, though, Trump's abnormalities for him. We've done it uniquely for him in order to cope with him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so disheartening a lot of times, to just think back. I mean, it's really, he's ruined the office of the president. I mean, I think, I really do think that he has at this point. I mean, the standard that we used to hold the president to on both sides of the aisle is gone. I mean, there's no, I mean, once you lead a coup, once you get caught paying the porn star, once you say, 1,000 lies a day, once you say some of the atrocious, awful stuff that he has said about people. I mean, at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, which looked like something out of the Righteous Gemstones with all the pyrotechnics and whatnot. But, I mean, it was, he says, he doesn't want his enemies to do well. I don't want my enemies to do well. I hate them. This is after Charlie Kirk's widow, the grieving widow, says she forgives the guy who kills him because she's going to choose love in this time. And, and I don't know.
Kudos to her. Kudos to her. For,
absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
that's something she didn't have to say. She didn't have to say that. Kudos to her.
Yeah, no, it was a very nice moment. It was a very, a moment that I think a lot of people could have embraced, and it done some real good for a lot of folks. But then, of course, we get the closer coming in, to ruin the whole deal. And it just, it was just such a, he is just such a, it's just a, he's just a bad person. It's just, I feel like what Stu at the end of The Hangover, when he's talking to his girlfriend, you're just a bad person, and it's just, and he is, though. He's just totally self-involved, narcissistic, egotistical guy that is so bad for everybody around him. I mean, he encourages just the stupidest stuff. And, I mean, even the folks who saw through it to begin with, who called him out, Marco Rubio, what a shell of a former person he is. And I mean, you can almost see it on Marco Rubio's face.
Sometimes, yeah.
I mean, what an absolute awful person he's turned into. And I mean, the things that he's willing to do and say now on behalf of this person who just absolutely scorched him. I mean, absolutely scorched him back during, the debates and things. And I mean, it just, I don't know.
Well, Trump put the T in toxic, and you can see it. One of the things that makes something toxic is not just in its innate, negative qualities or traits or poisonous qualities or traits, but it's its ability to infect the things that come in contact with it. So you got Rubio, like you just talked about. You got Brandon Carr, who just, a couple of years ago was touting the virtues and values of free speech. And then when it comes to Kimmel and some of these other late night, Kimmel in particular, he clearly doesn't value free speech, or at least he didn't in the lead up to Jimmy Kimmel's, being forced off of ABC for a little bit. So, I think all of that, when I saw that statement, the juxtaposition of Carr's two statements, again, it just made me think, There it is. There's the toxicity of Trump once again, infecting something or someone that's in his proximity, causing people to yield and bend to his negativity and his narcissism.
Yeah, it's just he's so transactional with people as well. And it to the degree that pretty much everything is for sale. And that's what led to Kimmel being tossed off the air to begin with, was this transaction between ABC and Disney, and the merger that they were trying to get pushed through, and and the idea that they may cause them problems in the future with other things, and they've already paid him $16 million just basically to go away and to stop this stuff and to try to get back in his good graces, and now he's threatening. I don't know if you saw this or not, that he was right as Kimmel was coming on, he put the post out where he was threatening to sue them again for who knows what.
Who knows what? Yeah, who knows?
I mean, he just recently tried to sue the New York Times, and that got tossed out. He's trying to sue everybody, and it just is. The behavior is so abhorrent, and the ideas, all of these things are it's like the whole Kimmel thing is a perfect kind of encapsulation of who he is. He is just an awful person that has encouraged others to be awful at his request.
Yeah, but I give Jimmy Kimmel a lot of, as we say, props, a lot of respect. His comeback was brilliant, the way he handled it. I mean, he embraced his own humanity and vulnerability while at the same time taking a very strong stand against what Trump and his administration has done. He also, I think, was very sincere, in my opinion, in his again expressing his sympathies, toward the Kirk family, and it was just brilliant. The whole thing was brilliant. And then the De Niro piece, where he had De Niro portraying himself as the new chairman of the FCC. That was really brilliant too. Very funny stuff.
Yeah,
It's worth looking it up on Googling it or trying to find it on YouTube. It was brilliant stuff.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. That's and he said, I thought the best line of the whole thing was, that this has caused so much reaction. We've got millions of people watching. Now Trump's going to have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this. And that's true. As somebody said yesterday, listen, I don't know about that acetaminophen, but I sure would like to see those Epstein-aminophene files. I'll tell you that. So it's, it just, I don't know, man. I get, so it just wears you out. And that's, remember what we said right after he was elected, it's going to be every single day. Every single day. But I'll say this, I had a conversation with some folks that were, they're all worried about it. And I think the speed at which they're trying to do a lot of these things, I think the cause of that is that they know that this is about to come crashing down in these midterms. His approval ratings are in the absolute toilet. There is no sunshine coming through on any of this, because it is, the economy is still bad. The prices are still up. All of the things that he promised essentially are bad. People don't like this free speech problem. People have turned on him on the immigration issue because of the way that they've done things. Young people have turned away from him. It is bad now, and I think that they know that they're about to get hammered, and so they're going to lose control of at least one house in Congress. And I think when that happens, then they have some real problems. But so God help us.
If I was a conservative right-wing futurist, this is exactly what I would want. I would want for the midterms to be disastrous, because looking ahead, you realize you cannot maintain the political power that you want with Trump at the helm going into 2028. You need to make sure that he and more importantly, his enablers and his supporters are disabused of the idea that he should try to go for a third term. What I would want if I was a right-wing conservative Republican is for this to be a crash, to pull him, to extricate him from, the position of influence that he's had, and help position J.D. Vance or somebody like J.D. Vance for 2028 and the future. That's what I would want. And so I would say we've got to lose this battle coming up in 2026 and maybe even 2028 so that we can win the war down the line, because the Trump influence, even if he's even assuming he's even still alive at that point, the Trump influence, we've got to wean ourselves away from.
Well, I don't know if they can do that. I think that they're too caught up in the cult. But hey, I'll tell you what. Let's slide out. We'll pick it up on the other side. We're going to come back and get Tabitha Isner in here, the vice chair of the Alabama Democratic Party. She wrote a very, very good piece that we want to talk to her about. So we'll come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy, as always, to welcome in the Vice Chair of the Alabama Democratic Party. It is Tabitha Isner. How are you, Mrs. Isner?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Listen, you wrote the reason, and we'll probably ask you something about the Alabama Democratic Party, just in general, in a couple of minutes. But the reason that we wanted to get you on and talk to you today is you wrote a piece. There's a lot of times when you write opinion pieces for a living that somebody will write something and you'll say, "Damn it, wish I had thought of writing that." That's really when Bill had sent me the op-ed that you had written to look at it, because they're on vacation and out of the country. And so anyway, I read through it and I was like, man. But the op-ed is it's a great piece. I was just disappointed that I didn't think about it.
That's a great compliment from you, Josh. So I'm going to take it. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I meant it absolutely as a compliment, because it is. It's a hall pass for hate was the title of it, and it essentially talks about, while we're focused on hate speech around here, there has been some hate speech that's been going on for quite some time, and although that hate speech has been deemed okay by a lot of Alabama politicians and leaders and lawmakers, because it attacked people that they thought it was okay to vilify, I guess. So if you wouldn't, just talk a little bit for folks who haven't read it, and you can read it in APR, and I'm guessing you're going to send it to some other folks as well. But just talk about what the overall theme was.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about the reality of political violence and the fact that we often talk about political violence as if it only includes the attacks on politicians, but political violence also includes attacks on regular people and people who have not chosen to put themselves in the limelight. And I know that as a political figure, I'm going to get hate speech and I'm going to get threats. And that unfortunately comes with the territory of being a public figure. But for millions of Americans who have not chosen to be in the limelight and are nonetheless in danger of political violence because of their skin color, because of their religious beliefs, because of their sexual orientation, because of their gender identity, because of their religion, those people have not chosen the life that I chose, and they're in more danger than I am. And we have decided that kind of danger, that kind of violence is acceptable. And I'm baffled that we talk only about political violence when it occurs to famous people and not political violence that happens to everyday people who can't choose to just be quiet.
Yeah, I think you could make an argument that even in the Charlie Kirk situation, it seems, although we don't really have a whole lot of answers about why the gentleman who did this actually did it. But if it's true that he did it because he was in a relationship with a transgender individual and that he felt like that rhetoric had reached this point where he couldn't take it any longer. I mean, so yeah, I mean, listen, you're vilifying basically people who other folks love. And there's going to be a visceral reaction to that at times. Now, of course, nobody is excusing, shooting somebody or any act of violence for that matter. It doesn't necessarily have to reach just shooting somebody. But you're right, though. We've done that in this state as well. I mean, we've told people over and over and over and over, our lawmakers. I've had conversations with them where I've said, you realize that you're picking on basically when you're talking about transgender kids or gay kids or whatever, you're picking on some of the most susceptible children to suicide and self-harm out there that we have in this country. And you're doing it purposefully. You're doing it over and over and over again for nothing other than political gain, because oftentimes, like with this transgender issue, and especially transgender athletes, it's such a stupid thing I can't believe we're still entertaining it, honestly. I mean, what does anybody, that's what I tell somebody whenever they bring it up. I said, find me one. Name me somebody. Give me a name. Name me some person that is a transgender athlete in our state. Can you give me one that's ever competed in any sport ever in the history of all the sports that we have? Give me one name. All right. And they can't do it, but it's okay to vilify and to make sure that we know that that they think this is terrible and wrong. And these kids have got some sort of mental disorder and to say all of these things that you would never, ever say about anybody else. Why do they feel so emboldened to do these things?
Right. And divisive concepts are illegal. We don't allow any divisive concepts, but it's fine for Charlie Kirk to go out there and say Taylor Swift should stay home and have babies.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not a divisive concept? What the bizarro land notion that it's only divisive if Democrats say it. And these concepts of misogyny is a divisive concept. Why is it allowed on college campuses? If it's a divisive concept and we've outlawed divisive concepts on college campuses, then misogyny simply isn't allowed. But that points to the ridiculousness of the notion of banning divisive concepts. Misogyny is divisive, so is feminism, so is egalitarian. Those are all divisive, and we can't get into the business of banning divisiveness, because that is banning thought. There isn't general agreement in the world. But the hypocrisy, I know we overuse hypocrisy as a criticism, but in this situation, we're seeing that maybe what we should say is we ban the divisive concepts that lead to the most violence. And the divisive concepts that lead to the most violence are racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, Christian nationalism. Those are the divisive concepts that are most dangerous because they lead to the most violence. Those should be the ones we ban.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, Tabitha. I feel compelled to ask you. I think you're making a good point, but I think you're making a point. I don't think you're really I'm assuming you're being facetious and that you don't even approve. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your real point is that the whole idea of trying to ban thoughts and ideas in speech is ridiculous. Am I right about that or wrong?
I think you're right. I think the times when we have agreed as a people that speech should be restricted. In general, speech should not be restricted. But the only time speech should be restricted is when it is causing violence, right? Those are our freedom of speech laws. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That is not protected speech because it could result in real danger to people. And so I think if to the extent that we put any limits on free speech, the limit should be put on speech that leads to violence.
I want the racist and the homophobe and the misogynist to be able to speak freely, and I want to be able to speak freely in condemning what they say, and describing to the best of my ability why what they're saying is bad and illogical and erroneous. But let's move on. I want to ask you about something. I want to go back to the Charlie Kirk memorial, because I think we saw an interesting juxtaposition there of the widow of Charlie Kirk, arguably, other than his children, the most affected person in the world by his assassination. The one who was most affected by it, other than his children, and maybe his parents if they're still alive. We saw her say, "I forgive the killer." Then we see Stephen Miller, and she's cheered. She's applauded for that. Then we see Stephen Miller and Donald Trump respond to the Charlie Kirk assassination with venom, hate, derision, typical stuff from them. The crowd also cheers that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this seemed to be done in the context of a sort of a Christian nationalist, evangelical, right-wing kind of atmosphere. As somebody who I know is a believer, and in fact, I want to say, if I remember correctly, you actually are a minister. What's your assessment of what was going on in that moment and what it tells us about where we are in this country as it relates to Christianity?
Yeah, I think there's a sense among evangelicals that there is both a moral high ground to be gained by claiming to love your neighbor, love your enemy, forgive those who hurt you, and at the same time, a celebration of those who take the mantle, not of forgiveness, but of righteous indignation. Both the left and the right are capable of this, don't get me wrong. But I think it is happening on the right in a way that is more baffling, certainly to me more baffling. And it's the same thing with, we're seeing the same thing with the execution that's scheduled for tomorrow. We're talking on Wednesday. The execution is scheduled for Thursday of a man here in Alabama, and the victim's son does not want the execution, wants to have an interaction, wants to meet face to face with his father's killer, to have a moment of reconciliation and forgiveness. And the state is saying, no, you can't have that. Your only choice is to participate in his execution. We both lift up and laud forgiveness and redemption and salvation and the ability to change, and also say, but first violence. So a spirit of gentleness with a fist of thunder.
And I'm assuming, by the way you put that out there, your belief is that the two really cannot coexist.
Correct.
Yeah.
If forgiveness is real,
yeah.
If redemption is real, then violence cannot be.
Yeah. Let me change direction real quickly, and I'm sure Josh will go even further down this road after I ask this question, but I want to kick it off. What is your current assessment of the health, the well-being, the viability of the Alabama Democratic Party?
My favorite topic, David. Not at all. Weirdly more controversial of a topic than should we execute people. So...
Right. Weirdly. Yeah, weirdly. But yeah, I think you're right.
It is. Yeah. I mean, clearly the Dems are struggling right now because we live in an Alabama culture where it is acceptable to be racist, homophobic, misogynistic, Christian nationalist, and it is not acceptable to say that those things are wrong. That's a really hard time to be a Democrat. So the party is not doing well, but of course, it's impossible to separate that from what's going on culturally in Alabama. And what's going on nationally in the Democratic Party is echoed at the state level. So many in Alabama are extremely frustrated that the party is not leading the way and being more aggressive in fighting the changes that we're seeing happening in our culture, in the leadership, and the policies that are being passed. And what I always say to people is the party is only as strong as its members. And when the members are divided, the party is ineffective. So as angry as we all are, what we can't do is turn that against one another, because it means that we can't get anything done. We don't get anything done when we're divided internally as a party. And that's where we continue to be. And I would love to bury the hatchet. I dug a hole for the hatchet. It's a very deep hole. It just needs someone else to throw the hatchet in. But it's never one-sided. You can't, on your own, make reconciliation happen.
Yeah. But let me do sunshine for a minute, because there are some good things. We've heard from some folks. We've had Susan McKinney on. We've had we know that the county folks are out trying and hustling, and they've done some different stuff around in terms of propping up some county parties, and that those folks have gotten together and they've done some good things. There's been some organizing. There's been some stuff that has happened. So I'm not wrong in all that, right? There are some good people doing some good things.
Yeah. There's some great stuff happening.
Okay. So I guess then what I'm assuming that most folks, because this is what I hear, is that the problems that we have within the Democratic Party, they say, is that we are too often not necessarily getting support from the top, and that we don't often get a lot of communication from the top. Those are the two biggest complaints, that just support and communication. And really, I'll be honest and say that I think communication is probably the biggest factor that people have. We don't know what we're supposed to do or who's supposed to do it, and then when we do get a message from them, it's something out of the blue that we weren't expecting. That we're gonna have a vote to change a bylaw, or we're gonna do something. Just kind of out of the blue, and nobody really understands a lot of the stuff. And I'll say this to their credit, in conversations that I've had with Dr. Kelly and with some other folks around them, they've pretty much admitted that they have a problem with communication. I think some of it is an age issue, and I'm not being ageist here, okay? I'm not just, but seriously, they don't necessarily communicate the same way a lot of the folks that are leading some of the county offices communicate. They through text messages and various whatever, and so that causes some issues at times. I want to say, somebody told me the other day that somebody tried to fax them something, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Yeah. They wanted to fax him something to the county office. Why would we ever need to do this? Why? And so, but anyways, those sorts of things. And then to make those matters worse, when they've identified those things, they won't necessarily accept help with those things because of the division that's there. And so is all of that a decent encapsulation of what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Numerous people have offered to help with communications, have offered to take over the social media accounts so that they're more active and provide content for emailing, help assemble a list of where do all of the county parties meet and when, and what's a statewide calendar of events. People have offered to do all of these things, and time and again they are told, no, thank you, we've got it. And the reality, nobody can do this work alone. There aren't enough people on staff to handle the amount of work that needs to be done. Same thing with candidate recruitment. There aren't enough people on staff to be hunting down candidates all over the state, finding them, encouraging them, training them, supporting them. And, I can take as many phone calls as I can take in a day to try to help people out. But really what we need is more and more and more people doing that. And there are great people out there who know how to do it. And we don't have a system. There's hundreds of people have signed up with the state party's website and said, I'm interested in running.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the follow-up to those people? My understanding is an email went out to those people that said, thanks, we have a training on this date. But one email is not enough. Why don't we have a phone bank to talk to every single one of those people and walk them through the process? But I can't get a hold of that list. I can't follow up with those people. I would love to, but they're not going to share that information with me. So the tight hold on information and access, it's dangerous for me to have access to that list because I might use it to build my own power or something. And so no one's following up with those people.
Yeah.
In the
This
intense
is the other
way that
thing.
they need to follow.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I want to make sure I heard you right. You said hundreds of people have signed up to expressing an interest to run for office. Hundreds?
Hundreds.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard that it was somewhere around 220 or so of people.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be even more incredible if we did a lot to encourage that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I say, and so this is honestly, so I've heard this from the other camp as well, that there's an admission of this paranoia is causing a problem, because, and to a certain extent, to be fair to them, to everybody I think, some of the paranoia, once you did get kicked out, I think there's rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, but once you did get removed, there is, I think, the tendency to expect that somebody might come for you again. Once the first knife goes in the back, then there might be some others. But this, no matter what happened or who's responsible, who's right or wrong, this paranoia thing is kind of causing a problem. And we have talked about it, but, we had Barbara Drummond in Mobile.
Yeah.
And
so
close. Very close. Would have been helpful if maybe a state rep or U.S. rep had gotten in on there as well and done some things for her. But that didn't happen. Because again, we got a personal issue that comes into play. And so he and his very influential family in that area also didn't get involved in this and help out the Democrat who was running to take over the mayoral seat, which would have been a big boost to the whole Democratic Party and in terms of what could be done in a major city in the state. So, but so there we are with that. But so these little things, let me ask you this. Would it help if Doug Jones, Randy Kelly, and Joe Reed got together? Would that solve this problem? Would it solve this problem if all of them come out and said, "Hey, look, you know what? We're burying all this. We're gonna bury it."
Sure, if they really meant it that they were going to bury it, that would help. But the problem is not that Doug Jones wants to call those 250 people who are interested in running.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the problem. They're not saying, no, Doug, you can't have access to that list. Doug's not asking for the list, as far as I know. The problem is they won't let me have it. They won't let county chairs have it. They won't let anybody have that list to call those people. The problem is that those people aren't being called.
Yes.
I'm
just saying, if maybe the paranoia went away, if in some way that could alleviate the paranoia, and then we could say, all right, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave the bylaws alone. Okay. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to mess with anything else. Everybody, we're going to put the disability caucus back in, and then we're going to leave the bylaws alone. We're not going to mess with this stuff anymore. Because we don't need to. We won we won the chairmanship with these bylaws, before, and we're going to do it again. So this is how we're going to do it. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to focus on X, Y, and Z that's for the good of the party. Doug's going to support us in our leadership roles, and we're going to, and everybody is going to get together, and we're going to make Democrats the best that they can be. We're going to put a strong candidate up for governor at the top of the ticket. Maybe somebody that we've already mentioned, and that we're now we're going to help everybody. These 250, we're going to get them on into spots.
So what I disagree with you about.
Okay.
To be honest.
I'm just asking. I'm not making a suggestion. I'm just asking.
What I disagree about in that framing of the issue is that I don't fundamentally think this is an issue about Doug Jones, Randy Kelly, and Joe Reed.
Okay.
Yes, those are all big names that everybody knows. But there are so many more people who are involved in this who are not getting along, not collaborating, because a culture has been formed. Sure, fixing Doug Jones and Joe Reed and Randy Kelly's antagonism towards one another would make a difference. Sure. hopefully that would change the culture. But the skepticism of there's an association of Democratic county chairs that's being treated with suspicion and paranoia.
Yes.
I'm the vice chair of the party. I'm treated with suspicion and paranoia. So many, it's not just those people. It is a broader thing. Labor, our relationship with labor is tense because there's suspicion around every corner that we're not really on the same team. The DSA is suspicious. The indivisible folks are suspicious. The 50-51 folks are like, the suspicion knows no bounds. And so to talk about it as if it's only a problem of these three men, I think misses the broader issue that we have to start building relationships and working together. And does it start from the top or does it start from the bottom? The good stuff that I see happening in Alabama is happening at the local level, where a white county chair and the chair of the Alabama Democratic Conference are working together closely, are collaborating, are doing powerful things together in order to get someone elected. I see in Mobile the DSA doing incredible work to support Barbara Drummond winning that mayoral, almost winning that mayoral race. And the DSA was more with Barbara Drummond than some of the Democrats in her own who elected officials were. Yes. Kamala Harris and the DSA were all endorsing Barbara Drummond, but we had other Democrats who weren't. Like,
who was the other Democrats who weren't?
You know, Josh, you didn't name names when you did it.
I know, but I was going to.
Well, somebody named names.
Shamari
somebody
Figures
named somebody.
Right.
Somebody
I don't know that Shamari Figures did. I don't know that Terry Sewell did. I don't know that Napoleon Bracey did. There were lots of folks in the Democratic Party who could have been more involved in that. I will also say, however, that like when we put out a call for phone bankers to help Barbara Drummond, like we didn't get much of a response. And that is not to blame people, but to say that sense that like we're not a team, we don't show up for each other. Like that's a broader issue that we've got to work on.
Now, since we're on this track, let me ask you a question. Municipal races in the state are all supposed to be nonpartisan. Was that a factor, do you think, in inhibiting people on the Democratic Party side from getting directly involved?
Yes, I think for sure that was a problem. So elected officials should know better. So I don't give them a pass. But I think a lot of people at the ground level were very confused because historically the parties in Alabama have largely stayed out of municipals. When we say that you know this, David, but I'm just going to say it out loud for those who are listening. A party, when an election is nonpartisan, that means there won't be an R or a D in front of their name and there won't be a primary. It does not mean that the parties are not allowed to endorse a candidate and have preferences. So the parties are absolutely allowed to do that. And I've gotten so many calls from county parties that are like, are we allowed to hold a town hall to meet the candidates? Are we allowed to endorse somebody? Like they don't know and they don't feel confident because they're getting yelled at from various directions that they're not supposed to do this. It's not the party telling them they can't do it. It's the public saying, no, you're supposed to stay out, and people are confused. So I do think that's been a real issue. It's also a big issue in Hoover. Liz Lane in Hoover, running for Hoover City Council, and the GOP, she was running a nonpartisan race. She was not talking about her party affiliation at all, although she has the right to. She's allowed to talk about that. She just doesn't have to. She wasn't talking about it. And then the GOP started pouring money in to defeat her, put up billboards, tying her to Hillary Clinton. 1819 News ran multiple articles about her. Like, the GOP is getting involved in municipal elections as well. And that is throwing people into confusion. Oh, wait, are we supposed to be involved in these elections? And the answer is like, yes. In other states, the Democratic Party does support candidates in municipal elections. We can do that. We're allowed to do it. Please do it. When it's helpful. When it's helpful to the candidate.
Yes.
Do it.
Mm-hmm. And also it's helpful to the party in the sense that you now control the office, essentially, of a major city within your state that can then serve as as funding. I mean, you get into the budget stuff. I mean, and I'm not talking about directly. You're not, doing that. But I mean, you get into the budget issues. You also get into the candidate, cultivation things, and so you have a bunch of different things. It's the lifeblood. That's the reason why both parties are involved in these things. It's kind of people have recognized at this point. It's the lifeblood of a party. This is how you build from the ground up. And yeah, I got a real problem with what took place, and I feel like. I felt like all along, first of all, I understand, I know that Terry Sewell was not as involved as she could have been in that race, but I don't know that she was as important as Shamari and Vivian Figures. And I took real issue with what they did down there, or what they didn't do. And I know it went back to the race for rep, where Barbara Drummond didn't support Shamari and supported Anthony Daniels instead. I mean, my God, she's in the house with Anthony, I mean, it just, and it's so petty, and it's so hurtful for the party overall. And it just, I mean, and here's the biggest difference. You don't see Republicans doing it, right? They bite the bullet. No, as much as we make fun of them for it, they bite the bullet and they get in there and they say, look, we're going to have to do this. Okay. And we got to do it. So
let me ask you guys this, because I hadn't even thought about the whole Shamari Figures angle. Did Barbara Drummond, and God bless her, I wanted her to win just like we all did. But did she actually go and try to smooth things over with Figures?
So I'll tell you, listen, I'll not share the secondhand story here, but yes. And there was some very nasty things said to her. So I'll say that.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
I want to be careful. Like, none of us were in those rooms when those conversations happened. So, but ultimately, I want to say this. A lot of people in the Alabama Democratic Party don't like me, have worked against me right. Nonetheless, I would love to see Doug Jones run for governor. I would love to see Shamari Figures stay in his seat. I would love to see Terry Sewell become more and more powerful in the House. I would love, no one is ever going to know, I hope, from what I say publicly, who I have had personal hurtful feelings with. My goal is to make sure that, it's clear that I support Democrats running for office, winning, excelling, gaining power, gaining influence, making the changes. Because to tie it back to the op-ed that I wrote, there are real people's lives on the line. When we elect Democrats, Black people in Alabama are safer. When we elect Democrats, gay people in Alabama are safer. When we elect Democrats, non-Christians in Alabama are safer. So I don't care if I have had beef with this person in the past. My interpersonal beef is so much less important than protecting people's lives. So, put down your animosity. I have animosity towards people. I'm not going to say I'm not a human with animosity towards people, but I put that down. Put it down in favor of getting Democrats elected to office. I would rather a Democrat I don't like any day. And my worry is that we have too many people who are saying, I don't want to see that person succeed because I've got personal beef with them. And that is not putting the needs of the people of Alabama ahead of your own ego and feelings. And we need people to do that.
Indeed.
Well said.
Yeah, that is very, and you know what? We can't do any better than that. So let's I know I was late. It was my fault getting you in, and so now we're late getting you out, and so we apologize to your next appointment profusely, but we appreciate you spending some time. Really appreciate the op-ed. I think it's something that people need to read and think about, and also what we were saying here. You should. Listen, if we're serious about this and you believe in the values that Democrats espouse and that we're lifting from the bottom up, then we should be doing that. But thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Tabitha.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Josh. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you. That is Tabitha Isner. And we're going to slide out. We're going to come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a second.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. David Person, Josh Moon, and we are joined by Dr. Candice Duvieilh. I had to do it the way Josh would have done it. You know, that's how Josh would have done it. So that was my tribute to Josh. Now I'm going to do it the way I would have done it. Dr. Candice Duvieilh.
Well, thank
Welcome.
you, David.
We
It's
are
good
glad
to be
to
here.
have
I
you
appreciate
with
you
us.
guys having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you with us. And you're with us because you are one of the candidates who is running for the Democratic nomination for the 5th congressional district seat in Alabama that is currently held by U.S. Representative Dale Strong. First question, obviously, is what inspired you to get into the race?
What inspired me to get into the race is, well, the core answer to that is that I'm a mom. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she's putting down roots here in North Alabama. And I want to make sure that the world is set up in a way that she and the children around her can be successful and productive. The long answer is North Alabama is very unique in that we have a lot of government funding coming from a multitude of different government entities, different levels of government, and having a clear understanding of that with the amount of growth that we have in Alabama's 5th district, I think is very important. So with that being said, I have 15 years of public sector experience. I taught in a Title I school district for 5 years. I taught 7th grade English language arts and special education. I am a policy analyst. I'm a government accounting expert. I have a stick with me for a minute. I have a bachelor's in public policy. I have a master's in public administration and nonprofit management, and I have a doctorate in education administration. So there's not very many things that are affecting Alabama's 5th district that I don't at least have a working knowledge of. And I personally think that our federal representative in this district needs to have that working knowledge. Now, do I think every district across the United States needs a policy expert or a lawyer in office? No, but I believe our district does because we receive funding from USDA for our farmers and for our school lunches. We receive funding from the Department of Education largely for our schools here. We have defense spending in the form of contractors as well as the arsenal that directly affects our infrastructure. We have Smithsonian spending at the Space and Rocket Center. And the list just goes on and on. So I think having someone in place that can understand and facilitate conversations between our local municipalities about that funding is very important for our district.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent case. Now, it does raise a question for me, though. If you were elected, would you be able to keep your current job? And correct me if I'm wrong, you do currently work for the federal government or for a contractor, right?
So I work for the largest company no one's ever heard of, and it is a private sector corporation that exclusively serves the public sector. So all of our clients are public entities, cities, counties, and schools. We make software that audits government spending, and I advise the developers on how that software should audit. So I did have to disclose my current position to the United States House of Representatives, and I will not continue this job, but it wouldn't be reasonable to continue a full-time job in the event that I become a congresswoman anyway, because my full-time job would become serving the people of Alabama's 5th district.
Okay. Well, I know some do, I mean, I know I mean, that's maybe not as common, but some do. I think about Raphael Warnock, who still pastors his church, and I'm sure there are others who do. But okay, that answers that.
No, I could not do both, and it would not be ethical for me to do both. So that would not be something I would even consider doing.
Okay. Josh?
Ethics. You have no place in Congress. I mean, also, I got to go back and correct something. I believe Dale Strong is at least considered an attorney. I believe he played the attorney, the district attorney in My Cousin Vinny. So,
well, that is new information. I just thought
or
it was a
maybe he just
volunteer
looks a lot like
firefighter
him.
thing.
Maybe he just looks a lot like him because every time I see him walk out with the hair and all that, I think of him standing in front
That's
of
who
the
you
jury.
think of.
Identical. And listen, if y'all go back and watch My Cousin Vinny, then you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Listen, I feel really stupid talking after you because
that is not what I want anyone to ever feel. My knowledge, I'm not gatekeeping it. I'm sharing it. It's for all of us to use.
Right. No, I understand you've done nothing wrong. You just decided to be smart in life. And I don't know that we can handle that. So listen, it is, do you feel like, just listening to you talk, And I'm sure you've heard Dale Strong speak, and I'm sure you've seen the environment of which you're trying to be a part of. I know you're not concerned, obviously, that you have enough knowledge to do the job. That's not a question. Are you concerned that you could be dumb enough to do the job?
So accessibility was a concern of my campaign team, and it was one of the reasons that we've really kind of discussed how to present my credentials in a way that doesn't come across as patronizing, because I never want to be patronizing. And the feedback that I'm getting overwhelmingly from followers on social media platforms and people that I talk to in public is that when they talk to me, they feel like I am helping them understand the confusing parts of government that current legislators are using to their advantage, right? And so that's my goal. And that's why I say my knowledge is to be shared. I'm using it for all of us. So people will directly ask me questions and I will answer them and explain the difference between funding. One of the things that people don't understand is that the Department of Education doesn't fund school lunches and breakfast, right? It's the USDA that funds that. So just having basic conversations like that, I think people are finding comfort in me sharing my knowledge rather than finding it patronizing, which is very nice.
Yeah, well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, because we don't have a lot of knowledgeable people in these positions, and I think we've paid a price for it. We've dumbed this thing down to a point where it's just really about which team you're on, and so to that end. What has the reception been like thus far for you? Is it what you expected? Has it been better or worse? How do you feel like your candidacy has been accepted by people in this general area?
So I tend to lean towards more of a humble personality. So my response to that is that it's been better than I expected, because I always go into anything kind of expecting the worst. And I'm working on that. That's a personal thing I'm working on. But I've had overwhelmingly positive responses. So for a while, I was doing sessions at Blue Apple Books in Madison when the budget bill was being negotiated, so that people could come, and we had roundtable discussions about how the city of Huntsville builds their budget. Then we had a discussion about how the state of Alabama builds their budget, and then finally the federal government. And that gave people opportunities to ask questions and things like that. That was very positive. So I think people are very receptive to having someone in a position like this that understands what's happening. And I think it's imperative here in our district, because now that I'm out talking to people and I'm talking to county commissioners and I'm talking to city council people, I'm understanding that they aren't upgrading our infrastructure just because they're mean and hate us. They're not upgrading our infrastructure because they don't understand the pressure that growth puts on infrastructure. And I don't mean that overwhelmingly. Of course, people, at the city level understand that they need to update their sewage treatment facilities. But until we facilitate conversations between city council, county commissioners, and the federal government representative, which in this case would be me, the person that goes to the federal government and says, this is what we need. Until we facilitate those conversations, the people of North Alabama are going to continue to lose, because the communication is lacking between the three levels.
What do you think is the biggest shortcoming or failure of Dale Strong's tenure as our congressman?
So there's not one specific thing. I think what I consider to be, well, you're calling it a failure, so I'll call it a failure too, is he doesn't do anything. And and I mean that
That does tend to be a drawback to the job, yes.
And I mean that in the sense of, like, if you watch his Facebook posts, if you watch the things that he's bragging about, it comes from a very, like, look what I got to be in attendance at today, rather than his most recent post where he said he went to the Homeland Security Summit. There's nothing in that post about who he talked to, what he advocated for, what issues from the people he's actually working to solve. So he went on Facebook and said, I was in a room with a whole bunch of powerful people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
That's it.
seriously, some of his most famous accomplishments was standing near Trump when he signed the big beautiful bill. Seriously, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. So for me, it is, your federal representative has a responsibility to take your concerns and the things that you're complaining about, which in this district is people are concerned about traffic. They're concerned about getting gates open on the arsenal. People in Ardmore are concerned about having to boil water because Limestone County water can't handle all of the people that have moved there. You know, a water main just busted in Madison County. I don't know what the cause of that was, but the more pressure we put on these things, the bigger these issues are going to become. And at no point is he posting, I was in a room with people that can help us resolve these issues, and this is what I did to help with that. He's just like, guess what? I got to stand in a room with some powerful people. Go be a powerful person and do something for us is kind of what my expectation would be for a congressperson, and I'm not seeing that.
Now, I'm in alignment with you. You know that. Everybody knows I'm a Democratic. I support the Democratic Party. I'm active with the Democratic Party.
What?
I'm a liberal.
You're biased?
All that kind of stuff, without question. But let me push
idea.
back a little bit, because I would imagine that if Dale were within earshot, he would say, wait a minute, I helped bring Space Command here. That's probably the first thing that would come out of his mouth. What would you say if he were to say that?
So my response to that would be, did you? Because when we talk about all of these government agencies coming here, all the way back to when they said the FBI was going to come here. When Kash Patel came down here, who was on the arsenal with him? It was Katie Britt and Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
Dale Strong wasn't there, right? So my response to that would be, did you? Are you in these conversations, or are you showing up for the signing ceremony? Because there's no evidence to back that. Also, Trump wanted Space Command here his first time in office. So this has been ongoing for a while. I don't really know that his presence has any effect on whether or not that would have happened.
Yeah. And, and I'll say this too. I think a lot of times, and I'm obviously not criticizing you, Dave, so I hope you don't take it that way, but I think we focus on things like Space Command when we should, this is my argument, especially for a U.S. rep, for a senator like Tuberville and Britt and everybody else that's in the Senate. Those sorts of things, the Space Command sort of issue, is something that they should be worried about. And I mean, Dale Strong should be as well to a certain extent. But more specifically, as a U.S. rep, for a small district, he should be out concerning himself with those things that she talked about. The water being shut off in Ardmore, which it was shut. Now, the people of Ardmore played a pretty big role in that. I saw the stuff back and forth. I live in Limestone County, and I'm served by this ridiculous Limestone County water service that we have here that we pay. My water bill is $100 a month. It's $100 a month for water in Limestone County. I love long showers as much as anybody, but my God. No, I mean, but my overall point is so many times I talk to people and I say, what's important to you? What are the things that are important? And I said, I said, for real, let's stop. I know transgender athletes are not really important to you because you don't know one. You don't know any of them. Okay. You've never met a transgender athlete, and we both know that. But what is important? And so when they actually start talking honestly, it's always a problem that should be addressed by their local rep, their state house reps or senators, or their councilmen, their county commissioners, or the guy that's sitting in Congress, and we can't see that for some reason or another. So this is the last thing, and we'll get you out. But have you found that to be a struggle in trying to explain to people why they should care, but why it's so important to them who is in that seat that you're now running for?
No, I have not.
Good.
I've not found that a difficult thing to explain. It's actually something I find people to be in agreement about.
Good.
We like to celebrate the wins. Our current representative loves to post pictures in a hard hat with a shovel talking about a new, 100 square foot factory or whatever that's coming here. But there's nothing to back that up. And I think anyone listening to this would argue, well, they had a roundtable after the Space Command announcement. Yeah, where the mayor of Huntsville said we have $380 million for road improvements. It costs, on average, $20 million to expand 1 mile of interstate. $380 million is not going to touch what we need in infrastructure. If we could build up our public transit system, we could get thousands of cars off the road. If we could open more gates on the arsenal, we could disperse cars throughout the city. So it's not just about building new roads, it's about building new avenues for people to traverse our district as we grow. These are the things that need to be taken into account. And I'll tell you this, as I'm talking to sitting representatives and sitting officials, county commissioners, city council members, even state representatives, they are excited to have conversations with me about what they want to do in their districts and their cities to increase the infrastructure. And it's almost like they're hungry for someone to listen to their ideas and they're not getting it. And I think that's the core issue that we're dealing with right now is our federal representative is not just ignoring the people, they're ignoring the people we elected. That's a huge problem in my book, and it's something that needs to be addressed. I think we need to have, local government summits each year. We need to have school board summits where our representative is talking to these people, along with town halls talking to the people. Jumping over the city council, the county commission, or the school board, that's not going to get us anywhere.
19 is the answer, Josh. Based on what Candice just told us, $380 million would only cover 19 miles of roadway.
I was told there would be no math, David.
Oh, my bad.
I
My
was
fault,
also
my
told
fault.
there would be no math, but thank you
My
for doing
bad.
it, David.
My bad.
I said some really important stuff while you were, I assume, mathing it
Yes,
out by hand,
calculating.
showing your work.
Yeah. So this is a problem. This is our problem. We don't know math, and so now we got to spend all of our time on people that are saying really important things, doing carry the one, and there's so yeah.
And that's exactly what I was doing.
Listen, and I couldn't even do it. I could listen to her because I knew I couldn't do it, so I ain't worried about it. My wife does our daughter's homework. We're both struggling. We both failed second grade linear math. All right, so All right.
Look,
listen.
I'm not a math person. I'm with you, Josh. I had a math requirement in college, and I took statistics because that was the math I could wrap my head around.
I had to take Algebra 2 in college. Okay, I had to take it. I couldn't get out of it. It's the minimum that I could get by with. I took videos home of the class. I would go and see the professor after class every day. We talked about it. At the end of the class, the professor said, "Do you promise me you're going into journalism?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "I'm going to give you a C if you promise you'll never take another math course." Because you can't go into another math course with him believing that I taught you to a level that you passed my course, okay? Because you surely did not. And we made a deal that I would go into journalism just so he would give me that C and I would get the hell out of his classroom. He did not want to see me anymore. So, but listen.
I have one on Josh Moon's career path. I have one anecdotal story for you. So my husband, he's an Army veteran, but he's just not super into politics. He knows that he has privilege and he just kind of listens to me, and he's Republican passing, but he's not actually Republican. So I have, at the end of the day, he puts the baby to bed, and that's my 20 minutes to do whatever. And I have a revolving door of Michelle Obama books, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, different political pundits, all these things that I'm listening to on the Libby app. But I take 2 days each week to listen to this podcast. And so my husband will sometimes overhear what I'm listening to. And the first day he heard you ranting about something, Josh, it was back in the days of the budget bill getting organized. My husband whips her out and goes, "When's that guy going to run for office? I'm voting for him." So, you have options is what I'm saying.
No, I do not. First of all, let me just say that you and my wife are on the exact same schedule, and the bedtime routine has slowly grown into a 45-minute thing between me and my daughter, in which we're now reading Harry Potter books. Now, of course, my wife does sit back there for that, but then she goes and does her own thing while I actually get her to sleep. And this has just continued on from the time when she was a small baby until now, and so she does the exact same stuff. But one of the agreements that we had some time back was, and I believe her exact words were, "I will divorce you if you try to run for anything." So, all right, fair enough. So we're that's my limitations. I like her a lot.
I'll let my husband know it's not going to happen. He's just going to have to vote for me, I guess. Yeah,
that's right. Hey, listen, and I would highly recommend you over me anyway. So just having this conversation, I think pretty much everybody knows who the smarter person is in this conversation. So listen, Dr. Candice Duvieilh.
That's close.
Duvieilh.
Duvieilh. There you go.
And that is the story, ladies and gentlemen, of how Josh Moon became a soundbite on all of my social media platforms.
Thank you so much. First of all, for coming on, and secondly, for running for office and trying to help folks, and for what you've done, just helping people, in the community anyway, to try to understand what's going on in their government and getting folks involved. We really, really do appreciate it. We need more folks like you. And so keep it up. Keep it up. And if we can help, let us know. We'll do whatever we can.
Well, I've appreciated the conversation. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank
All
you.
right, take
All right,
care.
we'll slide out. We'll come back. We'll wrap this thing up. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Our thanks to Dr. Candice Duvieilh. Duvieilh. Listen, man, she's a smart lady. I keep screwing up her name. Also, thanks to Tabitha Isner. Thanks to the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment for sponsoring and continuing to sponsor. We really do appreciate them. Also, the folks at SPLC for sponsoring and all the stuff that they do as well. We really appreciate them and the work they do throughout the state of Alabama and around the country with helping us through some dark times. So, all right. We talking to her, I feel like, man, she seems like the better fit. Does she not seem like the better fit for the Huntsville district?
Without question. Somebody who understands policy and government, to a degree that I don't think we normally see in a candidate. I mean,
no.
I was very impressed by her, and and I think honestly, and she was, let's say, diplomatic or judicious with how she expressed her point of view about Dale Strong. Mm-hmm. Dale's a nice guy, personally, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Haven't had many encounters with him, but I've had some limited encounters, and he seems like he's a nice enough guy. But as a representative,
he's run from people. He's run from the folks at the town halls and stuff. He's run from those. They got all mad at me because I said something about he ran from the little old ladies at the church. He did. He ran from the ladies at the church. I mean, they wanted to come in and ask him questions. Barry Moore stood up there and answered questions for 40 minutes. From people who hated his guts, obviously. But he still stood there. He stood there and took it because you know why? Those people are his constituents. They pay his salary. That's the job he signed up for, was to represent those people. And if you're representing people who are mad at you, they matter just as much as the people who are happy with you and who are out there, praising you and doing things. All of those people matter, and you've got to talk to all of them. That's part of the gig, man. We pay you for, we pay you a good amount of money for what's essentially a part-time job. Mm-hmm. I understand that it's not like, you're not working at a convenience store on the weekends. I get that. I mean, it's more involved than that. But at the same time, it's not as you're not laying asphalt in July around here. I mean, so come on. But yeah, I just think that you listen to her talk, and those are the kind of candidates that too often get shunned around here because they have a D beside their name. Or instead, they're the best options we've got. They really are. And I wish that we would do a little better in picking people, even if they're Republicans. I wish we would do a little better in picking people.
Yeah.
But all right, because we ran long with Tabitha and some others, we're gonna have to get right to the right wing bonehead. And I don't know that we've actually discussed the right wing bonehead.
No, we didn't. I had somebody written down, and then I forgot to even mention it to you.
Yeah, who'd you have?
I had Stephen Miller written down.
I'm good. That is a fine example of that, and really it kind of gets us into something that I wanted to bring up anyways, which was that really, really odd memorial service for Charlie Kirk, which somehow or another, it featured his wife, but that was it, for as far as family, for him. Maybe nobody else wanted to speak from the family. I don't know, but I mean, they had the pyrotechnics, with the whole spark thing when people would come out, and it was, and then so much of it was just basically another Trump campaign rally. It
was a spectacle, yeah.
Yeah.
It really seemed to be. I mean, first of all, it went 5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know very many people who watched, I don't know anybody actually who watched the whole thing unless you did. Did you watch the whole thing?
Of course not. I couldn't watch
Yeah.
five consecutive minutes of it. You know, I mean, it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, well, I'll take that back. The Widow, I watched a fair amount of her talking and stuff, and Erica, I believe her name is. I thought that she did a good job, for speaking and stuff. People have said that she's going to take over for Charlie. She's not taking over for Charlie Kirk. She doesn't have that level of kind of charisma that he did. And listen, I'm not criticizing her. He was a unique individual. I believe there was a reason why he was as successful as he was. He was a very good speaker. And had that kind of factor that some people have that kind of drew people in, even though I disagreed with and found abhorrent a lot of the things that he said. Charlie Kirk was an excellent speaker.
Well, you can have charisma, and you can have charisma and be and represent abhorrent ideas, or as well as great ideas. And I think you're right. He had charisma.
Yeah. And Stephen Miller is the opposite of that. I don't understand how anyone ever is drawn to Stephen Miller and what he says. He is, every time he speaks, every time he's in public, every time he opens his mouth and says anything, to me, it screams, I am the villain of this play that we're all living through. I am the guy that will be when they toss it back. He Goebbels? Twice?
I missed that, I guess, but
somebody told me
this
the
other day. It wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, but that's who I think he is ultimately in this story of things. Okay. I think he's that guy, the guy driving the stuff behind the scenes. And every time he opens his mouth, you get a real sense of this is just an awful, awful person who you would find pulling the wings off flies somewhere. And I don't know that there's been a more detestable person in government in a long while.
Well, I think he and Trump both are kind of neck and neck in that regard, to be honest with you. Both of them seem to revel in toxicity, negativity. Trump is probably more narcissistic than Miller, at least based on what little bit I've seen of Miller. But the bottom line is I think they both seem to believe that the dark attitudes and dark mindsets are what we should be embracing, and that's what they seem to revel in. And I think that's toxic. I think it's problematic.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it is so. I mean, listen to that speech, and this: you have nothing. You will be nothing. You will say, you can create nothing. I mean,
well, and I was just going to say, Josh, in addition to what you're saying, and also this really crazy, erroneous, distorted view of history, and I don't know who the we even is. I don't know that he clearly identified the we, but he seemed to be saying that we, meaning people of European descent, he talked about going back to Greece and Rome, I think, were basically the architects of civilization. And, apparently he doesn't realize that before Greece and Rome, there was Egypt, and there was Mesopotamia, and there was Babylon. Yeah. And that's just if you go strictly by the Bible, don't even get into, the archaeological evidence about other things that were happening in other parts of the African continent. I mean, his view of history was very limited and narrow and very short-sighted, and also doesn't even address and embrace the reality that when you talk about the things that were built in this country, they were built on this country on the backs of slaves.
Yeah.
You talk about Monticello, built by slaves. You talk about Washington, D.C., designed by a black man. And a lot of the buildings that are there, constructed by slaves, and you can say that for a lot of different places around the country. So his whole, Chicago, founded by a black man, or not founded, but discovered actually founded by a black man, DuSable. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that made literally no sense in what he was saying.
Yeah, and I said he quoted him. I think just checking, it looked like that's two different times in there. People drew comparisons from his speech to things that Goebbels had said previously.
Okay.
Yeah, but it just I'm confounded by this guy being there still, and his place in this administration, his place in our government, and his acceptance by certain people. And it's just such a dark, negative, angry, racist, white nationalist, sort of viewpoint that he espouses all the time. And it's so utterly draining to listen to him. And, you just come away feeling, like you're covered in some sort of film of ick, and that's just, I don't know, I mean, then I guess he returns to, sleeping, hanging from the ceiling upside down. But, I just,
That's funny. I never would have thought about it like that. That's
he just, I don't know, he really does give me the creeps, man. And I don't know, maybe I find Trump to be too stupid to be ultimately harmful, but people like Miller are not stupid. They're purposeful in what they're doing. And he knows what he's doing, and what he's doing very often is evil, and the words that he says are very often hurtful, and he's uncaring about those things. And when you're smart and uncaring and hurtful, that's a combination that is very, very dangerous, especially when you put a person like that in a position of power. And that's where he is right now. So I just, you're right. Being a bonehead is probably too kind for Stephen Miller. And, I had my only option for bonehead this week was the boys at Doge, who have now had to go back and hire all the folks at the government services agency that they had to let go, who've now essentially been on a 7-month vacation, paid vacation, and it's going to cost taxpayers millions upon millions of dollars to rehire these people and get them back into the job. We've saved absolutely nothing, and it's going to cost us millions and millions of dollars for the back pay and for some of the other things that have gone on.
Thanks, Trump.
Yeah, and Elon. Yeah, Elon really did a bang-up job there, all of you. Really great.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's get out of here. Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.
My goodness.